$45 million. It wasn't a banker's bailout, nor the inheritance of a mogul. It was the price of 14 canvases, 14 works admired by experts, cataloged as masterpieces. And every brushstroke came from a man who had never set foot in a major academy, a forger. Not a misunderstood genius of the avant-gardes, but a man who learned to mimic the soul of the great painters with terrifying precision. The piece that gave him away wasn't a painting, it was a label. A small stamp glued to the stretcher bearing the name of Alfred Flechtheim, the Jewish art dealer who defined legitimacy in the art world during the 20s. A label that was, in turn, a forgery within a forgery. Experts of renown, art historians, appraisers from the most prestigious auction houses, they had all looked without seeing. No one, absolutely no one, had noticed. Behind that piece of paper was a name, Wolfgang Beltracchi, and a story too perfect to be true. A story of loyalty, of war, and of hidden treasures that turned out to be the greatest lie in the art market. This is the story of how he built it, how he held it together, and of the crack that brought it down. Wolfgang Fischer was born on February 4, 1951, in Hexter, Germany. He grew up in Geilenkirchen, in a house where art was a daily craft. His father, a restorer and muralist, spent his days among pigments, varnishes, and old canvases. The boy absorbed that craft. He learned to mix ancient pigments, to choose canvases from the correct period, and above all, to tell stories. By his own account, he copied his first Picasso at 14. It wasn't a school assignment. It was a replica so precise that it opened a door that would never close again. That first copy was an exercise in style, the second, a challenge, the third, already a source of income. At 17, he was expelled from high school. He later attended an art school in Aachen, but no classroom would shape his future. His youth was a chemical wandering. He tried LSD and opium, moving across half of Europe, from Amsterdam to Morocco, from Mallorca to France. He began forging art, in his words, just a little, to fund his travels, a little that would become one of the most extensive art fraud operations of the 20th century. In 1992, he met Helene. They married a year later, and he took her surname. Wolfgang Fischer became Wolfgang Beltracchi. She would bring the scholarship to weave the provenances, he, the hand that erased the line between original and copy. The couple was a machine of two minds, he a virtuoso brush, she an encyclopedic memory. Together they designed a plan that would challenge the credulity of the art world for decades. Beltracchi didn't copy existing works, that was the genius of it. He didn't need to fool an expert by comparing two identical canvases. He created a work that had never existed and embedded it in the missing catalog of a master. Most forgers try to reproduce a famous painting and fail because experts compare it to the original. Beltracchi did the opposite. He painted his own works, imitating the style of the masters. He invented titles, invented subjects, or claimed they were lost pieces of which only a name survived in old catalogs. There was no original to compare it to. There was no reference. The painting simply appeared like a rediscovery, and the market welcomed it with open arms. Experts saw what they wanted to see, an unmistakable brushstroke, a coherent color palette, and above all, a business opportunity. It was a perfect void. In that void he built a silent fortune, fed by some 50 signatures, Max Ernst, Heinrich Campendonck, Fernand Léger, Kees van Dongen, and other artists of the historical avant-gardes, each one with its own visual grammar, and he mastered them all. But a painting without a story is worth nothing. In the art market, provenance is not a detail, it is the birth certificate of value. Provenance is everything, and the provenance the Beltracchis invented was a masterpiece. The couple claimed that Helene's grandfather, the industrialist Werner Jaegers, had been a close friend of Alfred Flechtheim in the 20s. The story went that, before going into exile during the Second World War, the Jewish dealer sold him an entire lot of works. A moving story, the loyal German collector, the flight, the hidden treasure. It was the perfect cover. With that passport, the labels bearing Flechtheim's likeness authenticated the canvases without anyone batting an eye. But the story was entirely a fabrication, and it concealed three cracks. The first, Werner Jaegers was barely a young adult in the 30s. He was born in 1912, So when Fleckheim went into exile in 1933, Jägers was already 21. The second, Jägers had been a member of the Nazi Party and had served in the army of the Reich. His NSDAP membership file confirmed it. A friendship with a Jewish dealer was not only implausible, it was historically offensive, an affront to the victims of Nazi looting. The third crack was the one that brought it all down. A specialist examined one of the labels and recognized it instantly. The typography did not match the period, and the paper was modern. It was fake. The seal that legitimized the painting was as fake as the painting itself. The house of cards came tumbling down. The investigation revealed that at least another 50 paintings sold by the couple were fake. What emerged was colossal. Beltracchi admits to having forged more than 300 paintings over the course of 40 years, of which 14 were sold for a combined total of $45 million. Just those 14. The estimated total profits of the operation exceed 100 million euros. 14 paintings were enough to reach a figure that would make many genuine artists pale. Beltracchi did not only deceive the market, he exposed its fragility. How could it have lasted without anyone questioning it? Because in art, authenticity is an act of collective faith. The market did not want to ask. A dealer who rediscovers a lost work earns commissions. A collector sees the value of his acquisition grow. A museum attracts visitors. Asking too much was biting the hand that fed you. No one in that chain had any incentive to ask the dangerous question. For years, the fake Ernst and Campendonk hung on prestigious walls, blessed by blind faith. The trial, held in Cologne in 2011, lasted 40 days. Wolfgang Beltracchi was found guilty and sentenced to 6 years in prison. During the sessions, he confessed with a mixture of arrogance and pride every detail of his method. The experts admitted that without the label error, they would never have detected the fraud. Helene received 4 years, of which she served 2. Both were ordered to pay millions in restitution. Justice restored the order that the fraud had broken, but the damage was already done. The market's confidence shook. Beltracchi was released on January 9, 2015, after just over 3 years behind bars. Far from hiding, he settled with Helene on the shores of Lake Lucerne in Switzerland. There he set up a bright studio and began painting under his own name. Today he sells his paintings and sculptures to international collectors, now signed with his real name. He even designed the cover of the album, The Fall of a Rebel Angel, by the German project Enigma. The forger now displays himself as a legitimate artist. The art market does not pay for pigment and canvas. It pays for a story, for the faith that someone, a century ago, poured their soul onto that surface. Beltracchi understood that mechanism better than anyone. He did not paint museums, he painted legends that museums bought. He built worlds of paper and color and sold them to the guardians of culture. His true achievement was revealing that the value of art is a collective mirage. His downfall did not come from a museum, but from an archive. It was not an error of the brush. It was an error of paper. An administrative oversight in an administrative forgery. Beltracchi did not defeat painting. He defeated the trust that sustained the market. And without trust, a canvas can be worth millions or nothing.